easel. These keys will fit the doors of perception, unlock the force in the core of potential. Scribble and rhyme like the stories I find as I wind down the continent's spine. Imagination runs wild on a long drive, radio silent, I hum along to the song lines. Honest odyssey of reverie is constantly present, of the higher planes we can gain by honestly assessing inequality present. Disarming the colony's weapons, realigning the frame, acknowledging historical loss of present loss. And write down how it all could be different if my ancestors had comprehended a modicum of what this continent's got, and instead of invading we'd consider for a second a stop. Imagine if after the War of Independence, George III learned a different lesson from America, that it's possible continents don't need to be conquered, native populations slaughtered, resources squandered, and when Cook sailed past this terra cognita, he recognized the precious uniqueness of a continent teeming with the league of hundreds of interdependent nations, and King George respected their sovereign status, and instead of soldiers, prospectors or prisoners, he sent poets to learn and create literature. Yes, poets, a fleet full of the greatest poets of the age, with strict orders to commit verses to page about the myriad cultures of this continent, to gain consent to travel across their land and document the language, the customs, the sustainable practice, so we could learn how to live in balance with the planet.
Where do we go? God only knows. These roads, they lead to the past, but we compose poems and odes, changing the future at last.
It was called the Verse Fleet, and after offshore quarantine, any poets found clean of disease were given leave to enter this continent in a Gondwana. They found out all the better to cover the 300 plus nations living here for millennia. Each poet stopped at each border to parley with the elders with no weapons, and except for ink, paper and quill, the only thing they brought was their linguistic skill. And still, if their spirit presented no ill will or villainy, they were welcome to country and permitted to see the way of life of these peoples. Learn and observe, compose odes and poems, sonnets and verse. Many fleets came, bringing literary greats. Over decades, the continent was visited by William Blake, Shelley and Keats, and a Letitia Barbeau, even the American revolutionary Philip Freneau.
Where do we go? God only knows. These roads, they lead to the past, but we compose poems and odes, changing the future at last.
The poets arrived and began to write concepts of law and song lines, transcribing the learning into deep rhyme. John Keats completes an ode to the dream time, under bright stars watching hunters move. He saw beauty he knew must be truth. Hannah More knew what happened before with the slave trade, so she penned flames, saying no culture should ever face change, least of all the oldest living one that remains. William Blake witnessed the ways that people served the land and declared them to be the universal man, and he wrote that Britain's last for capital, the massacre of its green and pleasant land for all. These dark satanic mills and factory floors had imprisoned our spirit in mind-forged manacles. Coleridge tripped out on the Drona ditch, seeing the closest thing to panasocracy we'll ever get. Charlotte Smith couldn't help but wish that the British legal system was as enhanced as this. Lord Byron tried to come in with raw rhyming, but failed quarantine, so he stayed at the borders fighting any pirates trying to arrive in Gondwana illicitly. He died heroically defending someone else's liberty. Philip Freneau declared it heaven or the Garden of Eden, and he's seen hell in Jamaican sugar plantations. Wordsworth suffered versus he wandered lonely as fires. Shelley saw the British empires as Aussie man dies, crumbling to dust while the dreaming remained refined. Robert Burns got to learn the real old lang syne. These odes written, the poets sent them home to Britain, where they changed the whole perception and the mode of living. And as my vision crumbles after pouring out my pen, this poet sees the windscreen and the road again, the bitumen, the landscape, the picture painted on easel, feeling the pedal, the metal, rubber, diesel. 200 years have passed, the invasion did occur. We did spread disease, did enslave this world. We continue to benefit from the erasing, the purge, the industrial exploitation that we laid on the earth. And now the climate rearranges with every strange day that we serve. But even as we face the burn, an opportunity to change fate returns. I grip the steering wheel, driven by the conviction that it's never too late to learn.